we're continuing to add really quality companies.
That's great. Well, welcome to the NexGen call. This week is kind of fun for me because I get to introduce somebody that I've known for several years who is a high-speed professional, and she really is. She has founded and runs her own company, Beyond the Chaos, where she is the Chief Eradicating Officer. And she is an operational specialist, a go-to speaker, and a published author. In fact, her new book, I won't steal her thunder. She can talk about her new book, that your business is holding you hostage. And I work out at the same gym as Susan, so that's how we've known each other. And sometimes we'll talk shop. And I noticed that a lot of the things that I discover when I go visit companies, a lot of the things that I see about a company gets to a certain size, and then it's hard to kind of keep the owner's arms around everything, and it becomes time to install system and process. And that's what Susan's specialty is. With her team, they can work with you in many different ways. And so I've asked her to come today to kind of talk about operational improvement, installing systems, and allowing you as an owner or a key manager to have some time to think and work on your business rather than being consumed by it. So, Susan, you have the floor. Welcome.
Well, hi. It's great to see everyone that I can see. As soon as I hit play on my slides, I'm not going to be able to see your faces though. So, Jerry, if somebody has a question, please interrupt me, and I'm happy to take questions during this. It's been, Jerry and I've been talking about doing this for a while. So I'm really excited to bring to you the 3 ways to remove chaos from your small business. So we will jump right in with that. I started Beyond the Chaos in 2016. The goal then was that I was just going to be a solo, and I was just going to do everything on my own. And that lasted all of about 3 months before I started building a team of who we call chaos killers. So my company helps small business simplify their operations, manage their projects, and the goal is really to serve the owner so that they are able to focus on the things that matter most in their world, whether that is taking a vacation, having dinner with family, or just growing their business. We want to give them the time back by systemizing things to get there. So we love small business. That's our jam. And we'll jump right in with how do we identify chaos in a business? Many of you might feel like your business is kind of running you instead of the other way around. That's definitely a chaos identifier. I've heard business owners who brag about, oh, I haven't taken a vacation in 20 years. Okay, that's actually not good. You should be taking vacations. It's better for you. And it also is a good measure of how your business can run without you. Oftentimes you just feel like you're drowning in tasks. You're buried under the weight of your own success, and you feel like everyone's mad at everyone, right? You're mad at the team's mad at you, everyone's mad at the client. Nothing seems like it is running great. And that's when you're like, okay, we've got to look at the operational side of things. All businesses really have the same challenges here. So it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. We're all operationally dealing with the same things. And many small businesses look at putting process in place or software as bureaucracy and things that get in the way. And it's really not. We're adding the structure to it. We want to be able to repeat our successes. We want to avoid the disorganization that costs money. And, if you'll pay attention here till the end, I'm going to give you a free operations audit so that you can assess where you are in these areas. The first thing that we're going to talk about today is how to systemize. Those are going to be really things like policy, process, and procedure. We'll talk about that. Then we're going to jump into project management And then the third thing today is interruption management. And I think that that is often where we get a lot of people going, yeah, I get that. So jumping into systematize, right? We want to go from a chaotic disorder to a very smooth flowing setup. I'll tell you a story about an accounting person that we were dealing with, and they were having struggles with payroll. Like they were pulling this information from a client trying to run payroll. It was wrong a lot. It was late. It was confusing. It took way too long. And it was the accounting company's job to run this payroll. Well, we jumped in and said, can you tell us what we're doing? And the bookkeeper accountant that was doing it was so excited. She's like, I love documenting processes. I'll give you everything that I have. So she wrote it all up. It was a 20-page document. Our heads kind of exploded. And we said, can we help you, please? Because thank you for documenting it. Now we want to systemize it. You do have a process that you're following, but it is not streamlined. It is not automated. It is not clean. We spent about a couple hours going through the process. We built her a spreadsheet that had a template instead of she was reinventing that every time. And we just gave her a now 2-page checklist. She was so excited when she ran it the next time. And she's like, it just saved me 2 hours every time I run payroll. That's the difference between having something that's documented and something that's more systemized. So let's talk a little bit about how you know when you need a system. Absolutely, to repeat successes, right? If we are not trying to do the right things and the correct things in the right order every time, the successes are just kind of shots in the dark, we're hoping. The other is stop reinventing the wheel. Let's not go back every time we have to do something and figure out all the steps again. If you're an owner or a manager, how do you start delegating? You can't when it's all in your head. It just stays there, and you're frustrating the people working for you, and they are unable to meet your expectations because they don't know what they are. The next part of that with delegating too is that as the owner or as a manager, you're going to be able to start working on the business that you're supposed to be working on instead of reacting and doing things in it. There is one other big thing here that we have to talk about, and that is the long-term business value that comes from having a great structure. If you are an owner who's trapped in your business, if the business is very owner dependent, you won't ever be able to sell it. You will probably not even be able to hand it down. Even if you can hand it down, the success of that next gen might struggle because they don't know how you did it. So getting that stuff out of your head is so important. We worked with a woman who she was pretty organized when we started working with her, but totally burned out because she was doing all the things in the business. She had a system. Some of it was written down, most in video, not actually documented in writing. And video is a great first step, but I do recommend getting things to a written setup, because if you have to change something, it's a lot easier to change a couple words than to re-record the video and explain it again. But she was doing that, and we jumped in and we really embedded ourselves in her business. We became a fractional COO. We helped with project management. We did some chief of staff work. So a bunch of different fractional roles for us in this company. And she had time to step back from her burnout and recover, and then come back strong to a systemized business, because we had to systemize it. We didn't know her business. To execute her business, we had to put those steps in place. When she came back, she was refreshed. She was excited about her business again. She's in the process right now of selling it, and now she has something to sell, whereas before it all depended on her. So that systemization makes such a big difference. I think a lot of people struggle with what what do we systemize? What do we do? And I think the first thing to start systemizing is to identify your bottlenecks. Um, I can't see hands, but if you want to admit that you are the bottleneck, you can raise it if you want. It's almost always you. It's almost always the owner. Almost always are we the ones that have the information that are holding people back. So that's one thing. Where are the bottlenecks in the business? And let's focus on getting those things documented so we get them out into the public and out of one person's hands, whether it's yours or a manager's. Another thing to systemize as an owner or a manager, things you hate. If you hate doing it, don't do it. Figure out how someone else can do it. The other is things you're not good at, but you've done it because you feel like you have to. These are all great things to get off your plate. And anything you're getting off your plate is going to require a process or a system. Another place to look is when things seem really messy. If things feel like they're out of order, really chaotic, maybe they have excessive or redundant steps, and you're not sure. You're like, why is this so inefficient? Why is this costing so much? It seems like should be simpler. Um, that is definitely an area to tackle. I know we all love AI these days and we all want AI to fix everything, but until you know what you need it to do, you can't automate it. You can't bring in those things. The first step is making sure that the system is there. Then we can start on the automations and the artificial intelligence. Another thing is that things that have been the same way for too long, ask people, hey, why do we always do it that way? And if the answer is because we've always done it that way, take a deeper look at it, right? That's not ever an acceptable answer. Now, there might be a reason you've always done it that way, but make sure you know what that reason is. And then it's okay to continue. But if it's just because you've always done it that way, let's dig in and figure out if that is still the right way to do things. I'm going to challenge all of you right now. You can do this super privately, but write down one task that only you can do right now. One task. Just give yourself a minute, jot that thing down. It could be something you hate. It could be something you aren't good at. It could be something you feel like you have to do. But write that one task down. And that's the one we want to put on your list to systemize. Even if you keep doing it, I want you to systemize it. And I'll tell you a little story about that. When I started this business, one of my challenges was how do I take 30 years of knowledge from my experience and teach someone else to do what I do who might not have that experience? How do they ask the right questions? How do they know how to identify the right things? Well, there were things there that I could do and document what I did and how I asked questions and what I was thinking so that I was able to teach someone else to do it. And then I did it. And now I don't have to do all those anymore. I have other people who are perfectly capable of doing our discovery and helping with our consulting because I was able to teach them once I started systemizing myself. So that's how we know what we're going to systemize. The next is, let's know a little bit of what's the difference between policy, procedure, and process, right? Policy is really the rules. That's going to be, we start at 8, we end at 5. You have to follow these cybersecurity rules to work here. These are the non-negotiables. They're unlikely to change. These are just the rules of working here. Simple enough. Procedure is a checklist. Think of the airplane pilot taking off, running down the list of all the things that they do. perfect example of things that they do over and over and over again, but forgetting one of them could be deadly. So you don't skip steps. You have it documented and you physically go through that each time. Process is really written prose. Now, I would always push somebody to a procedure, a checklist over a process. The other beauty of a procedure is that you can usually automate some of it. You can bring AI into some of it. When you have to write the prose, it's harder for people to dig in, but sometimes it needs to at least start that way. So that's how I describe the three different types of structure that we put in. And the next thing that we want to run to then is what do we suggest as processes for all businesses? No matter what business you're in, these are processes that you should have written down, maybe some automation around, and hopefully the owner is not doing. Sales, right? That might be where the owner ends up last, but hopefully that's also a place that we're working on exiting. But how do you do it? What is your process? How are you repeating that each time? Invoicing people or however you get paid. Make sure that that is systemized and consistent. Running payroll, that has to happen at least once a month minimally. And that's something that a lot of owners hold on to till the end. I highly recommend outsourcing that or having someone internally take that over. You can still approve it before it goes out. You can still take a look at it, but stop doing all the detail work on that. Opening and closing projects, of course, everybody should be doing that consistently. And notice I have offboarding team members. I don't have onboarding team members. Now, I do think onboarding team members is important, but offboarding team members can be an emergency. If somebody needs to be exited, potentially even against their will, and you have given all these keys to the kingdom like we do now with access to so much software and all that kind of thing, if you don't know what you're cutting off, you could risk some damage to your company. So think about that too, and repeat that the same way, whether it is a person leaving because of cause, or if it's just somebody who has been a great employee, but it's time for them to move on by their choice. You want to make sure that you're still going through the same steps and offboarding those people consistently. So let's jump into then. We know kind of some basic processes for all businesses. Let's jump into how our software influences our process. It can drive it in some ways. It at least influences it. And now that we have things like AI, Zapier, Make is another tool. If you haven't heard of it, it's a competitor to Zapier. We're able to make them talk to each other and do some things automatically that pull things out of what we have to write down. Note, though, that if we don't know what we're doing, we can't guarantee that outcome without setting that up. So we have to know the process before we start automating. So in software, think about what is your CRM? How are you managing your finances? Where are you managing your projects? How do you do timesheets? Where do you store client data, and how do you manage client support? All of those things are going to be things that you want to include in your processes. And if you don't have a software that is helping you manage those things, you should. So we want to be looking into that as well. Once you get all of the things documented, that can take a while. Do not think this is an overnight easy thing. I can say that when we document a process, the minimum amount of time it takes us as people who do this all the time is 3 hours. It's an hour to get the information. It's an hour to streamline the information. It's an hour to document the information. If you are not doing this all the time, you're doing it on your own, it might take upwards of 5 or 6 hours per process. So give yourself some space and room to do that, and your team room to help you with that. After you get it documented, the next thing is we have to require compliance to it. Because if you've done all that work and then we ignore that they exist, then we've wasted all this time, energy, and money. So the first thing I would say is to remember in compliance that as the owner or the manager, you set the example. If you don't follow it, you've just given carte blanche that nobody else has to follow it. So you need to set that tone. You need to support it. You need to support others in also following it. Because if those systems aren't enforced, they're totally worthless. We want then that when something goes wrong, we want to blame the process, not the person, right? That gives you as owners, I know probably everybody on this call loves confrontation and they love going in and talking about things that go wrong. I know I don't like it, but we have to do it because that's how we keep our business growing and improving and keep our clients satisfied. And when something goes wrong, if you go to that person and you say, where did the process fail us? This was not the outcome we expected or our client expected, but where did the process go wrong? Now you're working with that person to fix the process instead of blaming that person that something is wrong. It just totally changes the dynamics in a business that enhances a culture. It brings that process driven focus to life. And you know what? You still might find out as you're going through it that they didn't follow the process. Well, now let's start with a gentle reminder. This process is here. You need to follow it. And don't blanket do that. You know, I come into a lot of businesses where I hear people say, oh, we have processes, but no one follows them. But then what you find out is it's really one person that doesn't follow them. Everyone else is upset at that person because why do they get to and we have to. And so going and giving a blanket statement to everyone of now you've got to follow this process doesn't help because the ones that are following it are going to be jumping in there going, what did I do wrong? Where did I miss it? I'll go read it. And the ones that aren't following it are not still going to know that you were talking to them. So make sure that that gentle reminder is directly to the people that are violating the processes. And you have to be willing to escalate this to HR, even if you are HR as the owner. You have to be able and willing to write up and fire the people who are not following the process because they become detrimental to the growing and scaling of your business. It becomes detrimental to the other team members that are working with them that get frustrated. So you have to make that kind of commitment to them to them as the living, breathing documents that they are. They should grow as you grow, right? This is not one and done. We don't write our processes and say, great, there they are on our SharePoint drive. Anybody can read them anytime we want. We're done. That's not how it works. They have to evolve as you learn things. They have to evolve as things change. As software changes, as you get inputs, as you get outputs that aren't what you expect, they are meant to change. And so making sure that you're getting input from your team about what's working and isn't is hugely important. And that's not just in creating them, that's in helping them to live and breathe because they're the boots on the ground. They're the ones that are going to say, this just isn't playing out right. I can't make it work, or it's too tedious, or it's out of order. You have to listen to that and you have to come in and make those changes because that is what helps you continue to grow. Small improvements every day, way better than huge changes all at once. And then also I would absolutely recommend that someone on the team be designated as the keeper of the systems of the process, a process champion, so to speak, somebody who will be the one to review them annually or quarterly or whatever seems most applicable to the specific systems. You might have one that you're like, we review this once a year, and one that you're like, oh, this one maybe every month. So that's one of the things that will help you continue to keep these processes in shape. And I'm going to stop just for a quick minute here and see if there are any questions before we go to our next method to control chaos.
Susan, I like to what you said. I'll advocate the same things. It's a living, breathing system that needs to be improved as time goes on, since external changes are occurring all the time. And one of the things that I'll recommend is, I love the after action review. However the business works, if there's one time of the year that maybe you get some breathing room, that after action review is a good chance to make these breathing, living documents better and improve based on what happens.
I think that's a great point. And I get this, it's part of our process when we exit a client or exit a project that we do an after action. And every single time my consultant is like, do we have to do it for this client? Yes, we have to do it for every client. It's part of the process. So we do it right away so that it's fresh on our mind, and we do document it, and we come back to it, and it affects our processes internally for sure. So I completely agree with that. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Next up is our next method of how we're going to tamp down some of this chaos, and that's through project management. We had a client, had a new consulting business that was growing. It's a political, they do political consulting and media, which is fast and furious, as you can imagine, must be reactive. And they were doing everything through Excel spreadsheets and email. And they were getting behind, and they were getting confused. And as they grew, they couldn't delegate anything. They came to us to get help getting set up in a project management tool. Our favorite is teamwork.com. You might hear me say that several times over the next few slides, because it really is our favorite on purpose. And once we got him set up, man, they were off and running. It just changed the whole trajectory of how they were working. They could react a lot faster when they had some consistent templates and a tool that was meant to do project management, not Excel. So repeat after me, email is not a project management tool. It is not. If you're doing it that way, you're doing it wrong. Please stop. Please talk to me. Let's fix it. There are plenty of project management tools off the shelf. Teamwork.com, which I mentioned, Monday.com, ClickUp, those might be more, more well heard of. I know sometimes when I search for teamwork, those actually come up in Google first. But there is also plenty of industry specific software that can add structure to your projects. Even if you deliver a widget, it's important to know that internally you still have projects. So internally you still want to make sure that we are documenting and using those tools for our internal projects. Another thing here too is to remember, one of the tools that we often forget are pre-scheduled meetings with a cadence. I think a lot of people get frustrated with a client interrupting them. And if they have a pre-scheduled meeting on a regular basis, they're just going to hold those questions until then. They're not going to interrupt you. They're not going to pull you off of scope, because you then can control those meetings when you have them. So that is a project management tool, even though we don't always think of it that way. And another big one is your proposal. That's where you're setting the expectations with the client. That's what sets up the project. So if your proposal does not have a clear scope, budget, and timeline, you are failing at the beginning. Nobody has any expectations, and it's going to be impossible to fulfill it. I think the next thing we can jump into here are just a few project management tips. If if once we're using a project management tool, we want each client or undertaking to have its own project. Don't commingle, keep them separate. Every to-do needs a date or a deadline, and every to-do needs a person responsible, one person responsible. If you do not have a date, I guarantee it will be whenever someone feels like it. And if you do not have one person assigned, then whose responsibility is it? If you have multiple people assigned, I assure you they will all decide that it's somebody else's responsibility. Even if they're working together as a team on it, somebody needs to be responsible for meeting that task and completing it on time. If you need help to build your structure or your template in a software tool, pretty much every software vendor out there has a partner group that you can go and hire those people to set it up for you. If you don't have someone internally that can do it, that's okay. Hire someone to set it up and train your team, and then you'll be well ahead of the game. And just like everything else we try when we first start our businesses, like building our own website that we're not good at, that might be the only way we can afford it when we very first start. The second you have money to fix that marketing error, the better. So think about this too. Operations matter. And this type of project management structure is going to be a key to getting you, the owner, out of as many fires. The next part here too is to set the client expectations. I think for those of us who deliver a service or a project, and I'll count installing flooring as a project, or installing an HVAC in someone's home, or delivering a custom software product, whatever you're doing, the clients need to understand the expectations. And I think any of us in these service-oriented businesses, we get flustered about price and time and scope, but our clients are, they could go to the hardware store and they can buy flooring and it costs the price on that they sell it for on the SKU. They don't go in there and negotiate a different price because they want a different price. So it's important that we are looking at the scope is the scope. It was defined in the proposal. That's what we're delivering at this time, because the timeline is based on the scope. And that's what we're delivering for that price, because changes affect price. All three of those things play together. And most clients are very reasonable if you're providing clear communication to them. So clear communication with consequences to your clients is imperative. Make sure that if they say, oh, but I wanted this different color, that you're telling them, well, we're happy. You can always say yes. We're happy to do that, but it's going to cost X dollars more. It's going to take this much longer. Are you okay with that? They don't know what they're asking, right? They think it might be easy to change something that is a big deal. And if you're just going along with it and then you're throwing them a invoice later that doesn't match their expectations, you're going to have some very unhappy people. I also recommend give your clients a way to dream, a wish list, so to speak. So if they come in and they want a tweak or a change, and you're like, well, maybe if you have contingency budget, we can do it at the end. Keep those things running, because that is also a possibility of you being able to do a next project with them from those wish list items. Maybe it's not tomorrow, maybe it's years, more of a, but if you have that wish, you have a future scoping project that you can do with a client. So serves twofold. One, it tells your client you're hearing them. It gives you a place to tamp things down that might not be in scope and budget. And it gives you a place to build that later when you come back and say, hey, I know you wanted this. Are you ready to talk about what that might look like now? So those are some cool things you can do with a wish list. So when you're building a timeline, the important thing is that it is built. We don't build it forward as we do things. We want to start when the project is due and build backwards. So we want to make sure that we can get all of the things in. If we're just assigning the next step when we get to the next step, we are not driving anything. You can schedule it forward if there's not a date, but again, schedule the whole thing. Because if you are just waiting on things to happen before you push, that facilitation of pushing through a project isn't there. It'll just sit, which will cost money. It will cost time because now you're revisiting where were we when we did that last. There's nobody really pushing that forward. It also will take resources from your team just to stay on top of where are we in that and how do we move it forward, as opposed to having that scheduled from the beginning. Another is, let's make sure that we're meeting the deadlines or communicating in advance. I think most people are pretty okay with, hey, listen, this did not ship on time, or it's being held up by customs because of tariffs, or whatever the situation is. That means we can't install this for you in 2 weeks. We might have to wait until it gets through customs to tell you when that can be. But now think about that versus 2 weeks come and you don't show up. Now somebody's mad. Meeting those deadlines or communicating why and how they're going to be changed in advance is imperative to keeping your clients comfortable and keeping your resources that are managed. When you're building the timelines, make sure that you're including the major steps in the process, right? We don't need to tell, the drywallers how to drywall something. We just need to tell them that they need to go do this, area on this day. They know how to do their trade. So the major steps are what we're looking at in the process here of building the timeline. And then when we start, make sure that everyone is clear on the whole timeline. That is your team and your client. So any contractors you might be bringing in, make sure everyone understands the scope and that they've agreed to it. Now they have buy-in from the beginning. Schedules. Again, and team. You don't want the final push to be when the client is on vacation for 2 weeks or when the lead team member is, their wife is having a baby. You need to make sure that you're confirming it against their individual schedules and that it'll work. And then we always, of course, have changes, right? It doesn't matter what business you're in. If you're delivering anything that is project oriented to a client, changes are going to be a big deal. So don't let them get you off track. That's one of the most important things because an undelivered project has no value. I could actually do a whole session on this because as a professional, your obligation to client held to the original scope of work, keeping that work on schedule so that they can receive the value you promised them. You're the professional, you have that obligation. And if they don't get what they ask for, or it's drug out for 3 years, they don't have any value. Sometimes we have to fulfill the scope first and then address those changes later. Sometimes we have to create a wish list to address later, like we talked about. And sometimes we have to stop and talk about dramatic changes and issues that are beyond our control. So those are things that are important to address as they come up. And as long as you're building those into timelines, you'll be a lot more comfortable because the last project to manage yourself. So in your tool, create a project for your business. Make sure that you're keeping operations tasks with due dates assigned to you in that project. And here's a question. Again, I can't see you. So Jerry, take a poll. Raise your hand if you plan tomorrow the day before. I do. If you're doing it the morning of, you're losing time in your day. So one of the things that you want to do is at the end of that day, make sure that you're looking at what do I have to do tomorrow? What does my calendar look like versus that? And what do I need to block on my calendar to make sure that things happen? You want to be looking at that to-do list at the end of each day versus that calendar to make sure this is a big one, that it's realistic. I think most of us believe we can take on and accomplish more than we can actually do. So this is an important step. And I'm about to go to number 3. So are there any quick questions on project management? All right, I'll keep going. Interruption management is our biggest thing. And, you know, I can tell you, I worked with a software developer for ages. In fact, he's the one I co-wrote the Your Business is Holding You Hostage book with. He and his team struggled because he and his brother actually were the lead software engineers. They knew more than everybody else on the team. So they were constantly interrupted, nonstop, all day. People calling them, people slacking them, people, trying to email them, and they couldn't get anything done. And so we talked about it, and we're like, okay, let's take back control of our time. Let's make sure that we are in charge as owners and leaders. And all we did was set up office hours every day it was like 1 to 2 o'clock. Anybody could pop into a Zoom they had open. They could ask questions at will. The 2 leaders were no longer interrupted. And if nobody showed up, that's when they knocked out some of their admin work. So it kind of helped overall. So you have to remember that you are in charge of your schedule. Nobody else is. Don't be a victim to other people. And if you're putting out fires all day, your ops probably needs a tune-up. So to help with this, we'll give you a link too, but there is a code here if you want to scan it. There's a calendar course I offer. It only takes about an hour to run through, and it is free right now. But the key here too is to use your time intentionally on your calendar. Let's block your very most important tasks first. Now, when I said most important tasks, who immediately thought of work things? Because they're not the most important things. Your God, your family, your health are the most important things. And those need to go on your calendar in a state of prominence. Because if you're not keeping your spirit, your physical body, and your family okay, what is the point of doing all the rest of this? So make sure that that gets blocked on your calendar first. And then now let's block our business focus time. So business focus time should be a big block. That should be for an owner. It's working on important things in the business, relationship building. It's talking to different team members, building your team. It's also growing the business. What is our next venture? All those kinds of things. For people on the team, it's what is your main work? If you're a project manager, main work. So that should be your biggest block of the day. Please don't forget to put breaks in there. When I first started, I didn't understand why I was crashing every day about 2. Well, it was because I wasn't eating. I forgot that I needed lunch. It wasn't on my schedule, so the time got eaten away by other things. So make sure that you're doing things to take care of yourself throughout the day. And we'll send this link too, but it'll be in the slides. And then Jerry, I'm sure we can get it to everyone else.
Yep.
What's important too is to make sure that in our focus time, we're doing what we're planning to do. Deciding what can wait is so much easier if you have a plan. Many of you have probably heard the Eisenhower quote, in preparing for battle, I have always found that plans are useless And the point of that is plans are going to change. D-Day was moved to 2 days, right? Plans changed. But planning was indispensable because we worked through all the risks. We worked through all the challenges and we thought about those. That freed our head to deal with the ones that we didn't expect, and to be able to figure out how to accommodate those when they arose, because we'd already worked through some of the others. So making sure that you've built that plan, put it in your project management tool, put it in your calendar. That's the first step, even if it's going to change. If you ever feel overwhelmed, you're like frantic, sometimes you get a little like heart racing, take a break, go back to your list. I guarantee you that if you go back to your list and start documenting all those things that have come in, you will calm things out or calm things down pretty quickly. When you are interrupted, knock out the simple things. You're already interrupted. If it takes 2 minutes, answer the question, deal with it, and get back to your list. But mitigate your bigger interruptions. So if somebody just needs a question answered, answer it and get them back to work. But if somebody needs a thought-provoking thing, then that is when we're going to go back to our calendar and say, hi, client that called me in the middle of the day unexpectedly and wants me to do an hour-long, and I'd love to help you. Can we do it tomorrow at 2:00, please? Now you're back to your schedule. You put it where it works for you. You've also set some boundaries, which are important. And you've done it in a gracious way. And with that said, I will ask, what's everyone's most common interruption? And I know the answer, it's email. I'm betting that most of the people on this call have their email open all day long. Email is a reactive thing. It drags you through a list and it's an addictive thing. You get a dopamine fix when you're like, oh, I got that email. Let's respond to it. Let's feel like something is happening that's important. But it's usually not. Schedule times to go through your email. So set a time, maybe it's 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and then do it before the end of the day. Decision making when you go through that email is key. So there are 5 ways you can deal with an email. You respond to it, you file it because thanks for the information, y'all. I'm putting it in the client folder over here. It's junk, which let's admit is 3/4 of what we're all getting every day. It could be something that you flag because it's something that you're like, I got to think about this one. That's one of those things that goes on your calendar as a mitigation to do another day or at another time. And then, of course, there's a delete. I have absorbed the information. I do not need it any longer. It's gone. So those are the only 5 reactions you can really have to email. Go through them quickly. And your goal, I know, inbox 0. I don't even want to see how many icons y'all have on your email right now, but that inbox 0 should be your goal. It's overwhelming when there's too many things when you come into it. And if anything is too old, you might as well go ahead and kill it out now because you're never going to respond to it. And the other thing that you can do here is schedule your outgoing emails to set some boundaries. If you are working at the TV at night on your email and you're sending emails, how many times have you gotten in a conversation with a client at 8 p.m. and you're like, I wish I'd never started this? Just schedule it to go out for your client, and it allows you to work in the lifestyle that you want to work in. And you can also set up automatic responses. So if you feel like your email needs to be responded to sooner, send an automatic response that when someone gets one, it says, I check my email at 10, 2, and 5. I'll get back to you within those windows. And then the expectation is set there too. So there's a lot I've talked about today about intentional time use, setting expectations, but we'll come back to the 3 ways here that you can start to control chaos in your small business. That's systemize it, work with some project management and get that structure set up, and definitely control your interruptions. And I will take questions. I will share this free audit here. This really, if you don't have time to work on the ops yourself or you're not sure where to start, you can fill out this audit and it will start to give you an idea, even just by the questions that are asked, of where you might need a little bit of help. And I'm happy that with you. Ken, go to Ask Me Anything.
Susan, we have on the project management side, as you were going through the points, what I've seen, and I think the folks from Opler are here today, working on a clear and concise proposal, making sure that somebody has a face-to-face or phone call to phone call buyout to get the work. And then if there's a way to do it, have that pre-con meeting where gives everybody a sense for how that's going. And in my estimation, PM way back when, things go better when you do that. So I think that's great advice, and that's how it applies to us. Somebody wants you to go back to the QR screen. Yep.
I'm putting that up right now. All right, that should get you the QR code. And we'll put that link to it too. Jerry can share that with everyone.
Yeah. Catherine, do you have a question?
No, I am good. I love this.
Great. Thank you. And Josh Cooper, when Susan talked about that was not a project management tool, I thought of you and your experience recently. Do you want to talk real fast about that?
Yeah, I can. When it comes to emails, people hide behind emails, especially when it comes to project management. Essentially, what we're trying to do is two different things from efficiency. We're using Monday.com to get out of our emails because we get so many a day. So by moving over to Monday, we're starting to initiate tasks with our project management team instead of going back and forth with emails. So that's one thing that we're doing to be more efficient. Then also from a project tool, follow up and be more efficient with our customers. It's just a lot of the times, once again, we get hundreds of emails a day, and by picking up the phone, talking to these clients, talking to people, that's helping to clear up some of our emails moving forward.
Anytime you can reduce the email, it's so important. And if you're going back and forth more than 2 or 3 times on an email, you're risking losing the information for sure.
Kathy Palmer, did you have a question?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I didn't have a specific question. I think this is like one of the best. This is so like my wheelhouse, and Kat and I just kept sitting here looking at each other going, oh my gosh, the whole time. So I'm loving it. This was great. I'm looking forward to doing the follow-up stuff with you.
You guys with the next steps. It's so overwhelming when there's so many things to focus on and figure out your technology and your process and your interruptions and your calendar and all of those things while you're doing your job, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Aaron, did you have a question?
I did not have I'm taking and so I did not have any specific question. If I accidentally raised my hand, I apologize.
It's okay.
I can tell you, if you're going to work on documenting your processes on your own, I'm putting a link, which did not spell out. Hold on. The first thing did not go so well. Please go. I'm putting a link to, there it is. to my first book, which is Efficiency Amplified. That book will help you document your processes. It walks you right through all the steps. The second one I will share is Your Business is Holding You Hostage. And it is more for the business owner trying to get out of the weeds and work through things. So together they work great, but they will help you on your path. And I know we're at time, so I'll stop talking too.
Oh, one last, Aaron, do you have a question? Aaron from Opler?
No, Jerry, I was just struggling to get this thing off. But anyhow, no, I don't have any questions. And Susan, you have been wonderful. And it's just that, we have such a good team now that we are working with in our company. From the sales to the marketing to the operations, it's just a matter of now putting, all the dots together and making sure that they all are efficient. And I think your guidance is definitely very helpful. And we might reach out to you very soon.
That'd be great. We're here for
Thank
you.
Jerry, I'm really
Any
struggling how my hand went up. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Any other questions for Susan?
Hi, it's Yogi from Opler. It was my, that was very, thank you, Susan. It's been really informative. I have two questions, if you don't mind. One,
Sure.
What do you recommend? I've been doing a lot of documentation. Thank you, thanks to Jerry. But I'm also noticing there are new systems like Scribe that do video documenting. Have you seen any feedback from clients about video documentations versus, these PDF documentations and processes?
So I haven't used Scribe in a while. One thing that I like about it is it does document every step and it documents what's on your screen and your clicks, but don't stop there, start there. You can also do a video. Loom is one of my favorites, where you can show your screen and talk through it. Pops up really quickly, and you don't have to show your face if you don't want to. You can just show your screen. Loom is fantastic, but again, start there. Don't stop there. We want to get them written, and one of the most important processes you can create is how you develop a process, where you store the process, how you roll it out, how you set the expectation, how you change it. Because every time you change it, you need to alert everyone. So I call that the process of process, which sometimes sounds redundant, but very important to put in your wheelhouse of processes.
That makes sense. And then the second question was, I've been looking into an AI tool called Fixer for email help. Again, any feedback on that? Because email is one of the biggest interruption states, as you've mentioned, and that's why I was looking into it. But do you think AI is the right way to go about it? Or, again, like stating those hourly times to manage emails is the better way?
Well, I would do both. No matter what you're going to do, you're not going to get out of having to do something manually. But I have heard people who use Fixer and they love it. So that's an option. I have a virtual assistant who is incredible. Like she responds probably to 3/4 of my emails on my behalf, and no one knows it isn't me. So that's another option to look into, is if you have an assistant. But you also have to be very clear. You have to make sure they understand your voice. You have to know, they have to know what they don't know. So that's important, and you can work with them to get them there as a second option, depending on what kind of emails are coming in. If you have clients coming in and you're in charge of sales, I don't know that you want to hand that off to an AI tool yet. Maybe one day, maybe not yet.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Great. Any more questions for Susan before we sign off? Well, Susan, we appreciate we appreciate your time. You rock, and we'll send out. how everybody gets a hold of you, how they can get your books, how they can take the audit and reach out to you to talk about their operations. So thank you very much again.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Great. We'll see
Great to have
everybody.
met all of you.
See everybody next month.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.